After the 2012 election, much was said about the Republicans' lack of outreach to minorities, especially black voters. And recently, Senator Rand Paul set out to prove otherwise with a few speeches at HBCUs that have caused some controversy.
I think most African Americans understand that self-reliance is a very important part of our culture. From the earliest, throes of African American success on streets like Auburn Avenue and, in places like Tulsa, we understood that we had to do it ourselves, bootstrap it, bring ourselves up from nothing, start colleges, start Hampton, Howard, Tuskegee, and actually make it happen. At this point, I think the issue is the Democrat Party has kind of worked very hard and done a very good job for a number of years of equating the Republican Party's message with the message of very wealthy, very old, very white men. And so a lot of African Americans have decided very clearly, just based on that distinction, that the message of limited government is a message of taking everything that helps us away from us. And the message that we're trying to put out there, the Republican Party, especially Black conservatives, is for many, many, many years, we were self-reliant. We are self-reliant. In all of our communities, we have very large churches, very robust community organizations that do help us to get to a point where we are relying on ourselves to make things happen. The government is there definitely as a net, to catch us if we fall, but we don't want to lay in the net. We want to fall in it and then get back up and do something else. And I think that's the message that I want people to understand as the conservative message.
The major shift happened after Franklin Roosevelt enacted the New Deal, which basically gave Blacks the social safety net that they needed after being marginalized for so long. So, and then you couple that with a couple decades later and the Southern strategy and Blacks not being needed for Republican electoral math, then they weren't, we were ostracized essentially from the Republican Party because we weren't necessary to help folks get elected. That's bad. And, in the new GOP strategy, there was a Tea Party in there that was quoted as saying, you can't call someone ugly and then expect them to go to the prom with you. So after all these decades of being, called out of the Republican Party as being not needed, just showing up at Howard University for a talk isn't how you undo all those years.
The migration of Blacks from being Republicans to Democrats happened over a long span of time that began with the Great Compromise of 1877. When they pulled the federal troops out of the South, which then gave rise to the Jim Crow South and Black codes, of course. And so it was a very long migration from top-down policies. And I believe that that's how we're going to get Blacks back. In the words of Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? I think you're going to have to begin to do top-down and bottom-up policy changes that benefit the Black and brown communities. So that's number one. In terms of where we are and how we go forward and have we benefited, I think, unfortunately, the African-American community, since no one is competing for their vote, the GOP nor Democrats, I think they're unfortunately along for the ride. And as I said earlier, when you have a community that are stuck in failing schools, when you have a community that's now being discussed with respect to the healthcare exchanges as an afterthought, when you have a community that is disproportionately unemployed, when you have a community that's disproportionately occupying the industrial prison complex, there is a problem when you're not hearing anything from the Black community, you're not hearing anything from the leaders. We're just going along and getting along. And I think what the GOP must do, as Rand Paul, I believe, is trying to do, is send the message that there is better.